Last night, a giant paid me a visit. Not through air, rather arrived by sea. A storyteller by trade, it sat me down and proffered a cup of tea. It promises to tell me a story, but before it can begin, it issues a simple caveat. Words will rarely be spoken, and then his story shall end, and it is up to me to comprehend. What follows is a hypnotic series of images, meticulously and expertly crafted, with an opening depicting a vast and empty place. It seems to ask if I understand why it's so obviously and deliberately spaced. Confused, he takes my hand and we enter time itself and emerge from a rip in space. A vacuum of exposition with only composition to describe this place. There is poetry here, such beautiful poetry, deserving an interpretation, demanding an explanation, one that I cannot offer. That much I understand. So I lean back and I go along for the ride with this giant by my side, hypnotized as a ballet dances through my mind. My dreams manifest. A child is born, and then 1,000 die. He tells me the story has ended, and releases my hand. I tell him I still do not understand. He laughs in delight, while pouring another cup of tea. And once again his story begins. In this, my dream. Do you recall, as a child, you enjoyed every movie you watched because you hadn't developed your sense of taste? Well, it was Stanley Kubrick that made me realize that there are such a thing as bad movies. Not because his films were bad, rather because they are great. I must have watched Full Metal Jacket over 100 times as a child, sometimes twice in one day, and it made me realize what this medium is capable of. That after such a thing as good movies, well, there must be such a thing as bad movies. And if there's such a thing as bad movies, there must be this notion of great movies. But referring to Kubrick's art as movies somehow seems like an insult. They are more appropriately described as films. There is an important distinction between movies and films. Movies simply entertain us, while films move us and make us think. They force us to look through others' perspective, and they disturb us by revealing what lies beneath our true nature. That is the power of film. All art shares one thing in common. It says something about being human. It's the artist that actually has something to say that we remember. While some directors choose to tell stories about men with spider-like abilities and suits made of iron, Kubrick chose to tell stories about evolution, war, and sex, and everything else that makes us human. Kubrick was the real deal, an artist, innovator, risk-taker, madman, genius, that never once compromised his art in order to sell a few tickets. Which brings me to Hollywood's current era, the superhero. I cannot think of any other genre that has produced so much schlocky shit while raking in billions of dollars. And to what end? Is Hollywood not content until it squeezes out every possible penny from every possible franchise? Is not the 100% pure uncut dog shit that is the Rise of Skywalker enough? How many more franchises have to be sacrificed before we stop paying to see these shitty amusement park rides.
It's a different kind of thing. So there's got to be still, what has to be protected is the singular experience of experiencing a picture, ideally with an audience. But there's room for so many others now, and so many other ways, and there's going to be crossovers completely. The value, how do you say, the value of a film that's like a theme park film, for example, the Marvel type pictures, where the theaters become amusement parks, that's a different experience. And I was saying earlier, it's not cinema, it's something else. Whether you go for that or not, but it is something else, and we shouldn't be invaded by it.
Even with a resume that reads as an essential viewing list for any aspiring director, Scorsese still needs to kiss Hollywood's ring in order to get his next project greenlit. Meanwhile, Marvel already has plans to release Avengers vs. X-Men versus some other bullshit, slated for release 2030. God, how I despise Hollywood. Spiraling in the vacuum of space and time, on a speck of dust, and amongst the apes, exists man and his art, and the fire. And by its heat, they chip rocks into the shapes that suit their hands. With the aid of their tools, they begin to understand. They crack away at the stone, making progress with every hit. And towards the end, they chip away until it splits. By this new light they shall segregate themselves into those with and those without fire, and to no surprise, those with shall conquer the other tribes, and for all their smarts and all their cries, their certain fate, hear them die. Would the universe comprehend, their tools be consumed by the fire, so that apes could burn their shadows into the earth, and they shall return to dust, transcending time and space. Their art is the only part that should survive.
This is Stanley Kubrick. I think that if the reigning powers had any great respect for good pictures or the people who could make them, that this respect was probably very well tempered by the somewhat cynical observation that poor and mediocre pictures might just as well prove successful as their pictures of higher value. And I think that despite the unhappy financial upheaval, it has also provided a very invigorating and stimulating challenge, which has made it necessary for films to be made with more sincerity and more daring. If Hollywood lacks the color and excitement of its early days, with Rolls Royces and leopard skin seat covers, I think on the other hand it provides the most exciting and stimulating atmosphere of opportunity and possibilities for young people today.